right, everyone. Thank you once again for coming back to the Hot Takes podcast, where we are always humble, open, and transparent. And today I have another treat for you all. I have Ms. Katharina here and another coach, another leader, just another energetic life in our world that is showing her light, showing her love. And we're going to do some verbal banter like we always do. So, Katharina, welcome, welcome, welcome. Tell the people who you are.
Hi, thanks, Lawrence. My name's Katharina Bethea. I am a career and life coach. I've been doing it now for a year and a half. It's one of my biggest passions. And I work a lot with people that have reached either a point in their career or their life, and they're like, is this all there is? What's next? So they've reached a certain level of success, and they're wondering like why they're not happy. Then that's when they find me. So that's the work that we do. And I do that through individual one-on-one coaching. But one of the goals I set out for myself this year was to launch a group coaching program. And I did. And we're getting ready to wrap up the first cohort here. So it's been a fun ride despite COVID and everything this year.
That is super, super exciting to have that cohort finishing up. And when you say life coaching, right, we hear that a lot. But what does life coaching mean to you?
Well, I came to life coaching maybe 2-3 years ago. I'd hit a point in my life. I had just turned 40. I was laid off from my job after being promoted, then getting laid off, and then at the same time filed for divorce. So it was one of those things where it's like, this is not the way I thought my life was going to go. And while I'm always open to change, the rule of thumb says if you have more than 2 life-changing events in a year, then you may want to take a break. And so I met a life coach while I was on vacation in Colorado Springs. It was my treat to myself for my 40th birthday. And it just started as a conversation. And it's those questions of, what's your purpose? And I was like, don't know. What are the things that you want to achieve, and why do you want to achieve those? So for me, it was that conversation that drew me in. And it really helped set like the skeleton for what I wanted to do with my life. And that was the beginning. And as I was going through the coaching, as we were coaching together, I realized, actually, this is something I think I would really like to do. Because back when I was 20 years old, I set up this plan for my life of like, at some point I want to step away from the corporate world and consult. But I wasn't quite sure what that looked like. And people have always come to me for advice. I'm also a certified yoga teacher. You have these like close conversations or like intimate conversations with your students before and after class. And I realized that people were coming to me with these big questions. And instead of giving them advice, which my advice only comes from my perspective, people have the answers. Like they have the answers. They know what's right for them. It just takes a little bit of digging to find that out. So that for me, that's the process of life coaching. It's helping my clients dig a little bit deeper and really start to listen to their intuition, to their dreams, to really create a life that when they step back and look at it, they can say, yep, I've had a life well lived.
Wow. I love that. And particularly that combined with how people transition to what's next for them, that empowerment of you as a coach to say, you know what, I'm not going to determine that for you. Like you're in that space, you have the answers. It's just one of those creating opportunities for them to get out of their own way, and understanding individually that can be a very intimate engagement, an intimate process. You said you're just finishing up a group coaching cohort.
Yes.
What that look like?
So it was an interesting process to go through. It was an idea that I had in my mind. Ultimately, as a coach, my goal is to make coaching as accessible to as many people as possible. It's a powerful tool for change, but for the longest time, executives were the only people that had access to them, or leaders such as, Oprah and other influencers, because life coaching can be really expensive. But I wanted to make it accessible to people, but I also knew the power of learning when it comes from a group. So as a yoga teacher who's also trained yoga teachers, the way yoga training is done is it's very similar to coaching in that you have a group of people that are learning from each other through their experiences with this structure of yoga teacher training, of postures, of theories, of things not to do and not to do, of how to maintain presence as a teacher. People learn quickly from one another. So that was always in the back of my mind. So I actually took a sabbatical this year because I knew it needed my full attention. I wanted to really develop a program that was inclusive, but also fluid and flexible. So I came up with this idea of audacious living group coaching. And the word audacious is because you want to live in a way that's authentic to you, but you also want to live in a way that's out loud and in color. And that's essentially what audacious means. So I put together a 6-week program that's built around some very specific coaching frameworks to shift your mindset, recognize your emotions, choose your thoughts. But then also one thing I really believe in is so many people have tried different systems, like a 6-step system to do this, an organization system, and it falls flat. For some reason, it doesn't work for them. It's because they think they have to stick to that process. So the last phase of the group coaching is learning how to look at those things and then break it apart and make it work for you. And so that's the third element of that is, okay, you can learn from anyone, but how do you take that learning and make it work for you? So it's perfect. It's been, we're going on week 6. So the last week, 7 amazing women from across the globe. Actually, I've got some people in Canada, one in Peru, scattered across the US as well. And the learning that's been going on and the sharing has been incredible. They just continue to amaze me. And who knew that when I planned this, that COVID was going to hit? So opportune learning time when you're dealing with people's mind frames and they're stuck at home. And now what we're seeing with this sort of like civil awakening and unrest, the processing that's going on, and you just have to be real. And I think that's what I've learned is this ability to be flexible, because in some regards, the curriculum I had set, the last 2 weeks, it's kind of been tossed out the window to actually use the tools that they've been learning and putting them into practice. So I'm really happy with how it's turned out. And then at some point I'll do feedback and reflection and what do I want the next cohort to look like.
Oh my gosh, you was just dropping all kind of bombs, and I love that part of and that element of choose your thoughts, right? Because regardless of, and it's almost a mental, you have to manage the expectation, right? And you get the opportunity to pick and choose your thoughts, but that speaks to accountability and ownership as you're inside of that process. And I love the dynamic of, again, COVID presented one set of factors, right? And how we can't escape these realities of I got to be at home. I'm limited to where I can go. But then you add on the social unrest and the social injustice and the realities, even yourself as a minority coach in the midst of this, of identifying how am I processing my feelings while I'm trying to coach this group of passionate people who have their own sets of thoughts and their own sets of emotions. And I think for a lot of us in this season, it's really been, I say I'm at a point where I'm better. I'm not good. I'm better. And I think I've come to the point now, and what I love that you're doing with this group, and I got some nuggets of, the powerful tools for change in creating those collaborative learning environments, because there may be some level of resiliency that comes out from that group and somebody who has dealt with something and something that comes out. Have you found that already, where there's just some powerful things that they've just brought to the table?
Oh, you just gave me goosebumps, so one of the women in this group was a former career coaching client of mine and was thinking about going into group coaching or going into life coaching, but wasn't sure. So the group coaching is a nice foray for her into the whole, other than career coaching, what does that look like? And after, George Floyd's death, and she was really frustrated, and we talked about it that week in our group coaching call of, this is hard for me. And for a lot of them, it was the first time they were realizing just how hard it was and for how long. And after, I opened up the floor for just like questions and thoughts and for them to share. And I was like, I don't have the answers, but I think you guys just sharing it will help. And after that session, a couple of days later, she sent me a text message and she said, I'm heading out to a protest, not necessarily just to say that I went, but she said, something you told me when we first started working together resonates with me. And that's like, and she said it was not taking an action, choosing not to act is a decision and an action. And that same day, another former client of mine said the same thing in terms of they're realizing that the things that I'd been telling them, that when you choose to do nothing, you're still making a choice and that's still an action. And that came up in their minds. And I, like when I coach, I kind of go into a zone and sometimes I'll remember what happens and that's one of the reasons why I take notes. But I was like, oh yeah, that is something that I say a lot. And it's amazing who's listening and how that's coming up now. So for me, it was also awakening or another realization of just like the power of coaching and that people will remember what you say and it comes back at times like this.
Yeah. And I really believe that's in these times, whether we want to believe it or not, we're adults are large children. And like children, we observe people and we look at people. And anytime, I don't take it lightly when I'm in a coaching relationship with someone that they're monitoring how they experience me outside of a session. And for those people to be processing and you to come up for them, you've built rapport, you've built trust, you've built confidence that you're a person that's a reliable source of strength and encouragement. And I think that's what people have really been looking for. And when they ask the question or they say things like, I don't know what to do, they're looking for that guiding voice. They're looking for that person that's going to sit in a space with them and hold them accountable, of why don't you know? Like, and create and reframe for the opportunity of discovery. Like, oh, you actually know how to have this conversation. When did we ever turn off actually being human? What's the human response?
Yep.
Right.
Well, I think that's a good point. Like, what's the human response? And for so many people, the way I look at this is COVID had to happen in order for this situation, the civil awakening, to happen, because we are so busy in our everyday lives.
Yep.
And it's not that this, the murder of a person of color at the hands of police hasn't happened before. And it's not that, our nation's history hasn't happened before. It's that we've been so busy. It's like, oh my gosh, that's so sad. Yeah. I just need to get on with my life. That now when COVID came, people were forced to sit with themselves and be quiet and start looking around as to what's really important in my life. And it started to create this space of awakening and just reckoning. And then when this happened, they're like, wait, this is not the first time we've heard this. What do you mean that this has been going on? And I know it's been going on. Why haven't I said anything? So on their part, it's a form of shame, which, we know what Brene Brown says about shame, and then the emotions that produces. But then moving past that to a place of action, and the people that have taken the brave steps to go out and protest amidst COVID, I think this time is a lot different. And it had to happen. COVID had to happen in order for this to happen.
Yeah. And again, I've gotten away from feeling shame and even saying that comment, right? It had to happen, right? Because again, it's almost like you're taking something that's been a reality for me as a human being. Like it's been here. And I really believe the reason why this is different, like somebody said, like this feels different. You want to know why? Because you have no other distractions.
Yeah.
There's nothing else on TV. Your favorite series, they don't know if they're going to pick them back up because actors have to be in person with each other to create a series. So none of the new episodes are coming out. They're not filming anything additional. So the George Floyd murder has been on repeat on every single channel. Protest on repeat. Rioting, regardless of how you feel, like on repeat on every single channel. The dysfunctional person in the highest position in our land on repeat. The level of dysfunction and his bandwagon folks. It's all burning and it's all on repeat. And I think This season, they haven't been able to look away. They
Yeah.
haven't. It's on social media. Everybody's responding to it. Everybody's taking a position, and or not. And like you
Yeah.
said, regardless of what you do or don't, you made a decision.
Yeah.
And I think that's the hard reality for a lot of people, that they're coming to grips with. When we say something like Black Lives Matter, we're not going and defaulting like you from a place of privilege, like all life should matter. No, we're not coming from that place. We're just now saying, again, this is our new civil rights. Like, we still matter. Like, you still haven't been treating us civilly. So there's a new slogan, Black Lives Matter. Like, maybe
Yeah.
this want to trigger you to actually have some change that doesn't have you looking at me as less than, or
Yeah.
treat me like something other than the human being that I am. And until Black lives do matter, you can't make a true statement out of all lives matter, because it's
Yeah.
not a true statement when you have an entire organization called PETA that will go after somebody like Michael Vick, and he spent jail time for dogfighting for animals. And how many police are walking the streets to this day with no charges whatsoever for killing
Yeah.
somebody of
Yeah.
color? Like that, and it baffles me. No jail time, and all we want is reform. Like, you
Yeah.
got some places on disband, defund. We got some got to happen. Something has to happen. I think you as a coach, I love what you do, and again, I love the audacious living of choosing what does a higher level of self look like in this environment. And if you're what's an ideal client? Like, I love this question. What does your ideal client look like?
Yeah. And I just want to like go back to what you're saying in terms of just one thing is like change is messy. And it's also what you learn in the coaching process is people come to the coaching process and they think, oh, I'm just going to go and answer some questions, do a little bit of work, and voila, I'm out a changed person. But the process of change is messy, be it societal change or personal change. And that's also a phrase I've heard a lot of is change is messy. So when I look for my ideal client, it's someone who's willing to get uncomfortable and who knows that there's something just not quite right, and they're willing to get their hands dirty. Now, as a business owner and an entrepreneur, you look at from a marketing perspective, well, what are the demographics? And for me, the people that I really work best for, as I say it, it's Gen X and millennials. And it's the Gen Xers because they're still in the workforce. They're frustrated. They feel like they're not taken seriously. They feel like they're being leapfrogged by the millennials. There's still a lot of baby boomers in the workforce, but Gen Xers feel sandwiched. They feel like I need to take care of my aging parents, but I also have like my kids to take care of. And I'm trying to still I still have a good amount of time left in my career. So that's where the frustration comes from. Millennials, because they're the most educated generation we have in this country right now. But they've also seen, some trying times, but they've hit a point where they're like, is this all there is? Like I've been doing what I was told to do, but I'm still not happy. And so with that, I step back and I look at my ideal client. It's typically someone who's had a certain level of success, be that financial success, career success, with their, life success in their own personal relationships. And they're looking to change that definition of success. And they know that they need to change it because what they've been chasing up until now hasn't made them happy.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
And what I'm really finding out with this group, right, being a leadership development guy and having to have been asked, how do we bridge between generations in the workforce? And I was like,
Yeah.
try talking to each other. I was like,
Yeah.
wait, that's a start. But I said, if you're not going to start there, let's start with removing labels, and just deal with the people in those brackets, because I believe millennials have gotten a bad rap. And
Absolutely.
and again, they've also gotten a bad rap, but they've also been empowered to believe that education. So I go get all these degrees, and then you bring me into an organization, and then you tell me to shut up and color and sit in the corner. Well, no,
Mhm.
I'm not going to do that because up until this point, I've actually launched many projects that have
Yep.
gained me all kind of experience. I've actually, like you said, partial levels of success and some extreme success in
Yep.
app development and all other kind of stuff. But they like, hey, there's still something to this, being a part of a corporate community and growing out this thing. But then the Xer in the middle with us is like, we have that age group where just put your head down, work hard. And so you have that, but then on the other side of it, you're sandwiched between this super entrepreneur generation that's coming behind us, and we're actually like, we haven't had mentors. We just maybe got access to a coach. And
Mhm.
you know what? We want our cake and want to eat it,
Yep.
at least one day a week. And we start to go after these journeys of entrepreneurship, but understanding there are some levels of resiliency on all sides that we've had to learn as Xers ourselves. And I think the way that I've bridged that gap between all generations is, let's just sit and you come to the table with where you are, right?
Mhm.
Regardless of your level of understanding of life. Let's start there, because the last thing we want to do is, and I love this a personality style and a personal strategies training that I do, where we're very particular and we showing people it takes introverts and extroverts to be in the room for us to have a well-rounded conversation. It takes intuitives, perceivers, judgers, feelers. It takes everybody, thinkers. It takes everybody to be present, or at least a good coalition for us to have meaningful discussion and collaboration. And I think across the board, if that is to be true, those things don't have ages on them.
No, they don't.
You
And
just
it's
need to
really
be
about,
present. Yeah.
yeah, it's really about experience. I have a
Yeah.
client who is, she's in the boomer generation. She's a baby boomer, very successful in her past career, and is still she still wants to work because she still has creativity. She still has ideas, and she's also willing to learn. So it is that ability to take away the labels and look at the person and the skills that they bring to the table. One of the things that I've loved about the group coaching is it is this, from a demographic perspective, a mix of Gen Xers and millennials. And they're talking to one another. And I actually paired them up with what's called accountability partners, and was very intentional about, what are their goals? What are the things that they're looking to do? As I did their intake calls, trying to understand what they wanted, and match them up with someone with either complementary energy and goals, or someone they could learn from. And it didn't matter their age, but what's happening is it's this constant like back and forth of parallel mentorship in a way. So someone will share their experience with this, and then someone else will be like, oh great, I could really learn from that. And then someone else will say, I've had this experience, and they're asking each other questions. And it's partially because no one really knows what, at the beginning, what they did professionally, what level of accomplishment they've had. And so it did strip away those labels and just bring their experience to the table. And from there, just develop this mutual respect and collaboration between these women.
I absolutely love that. You created coaching buddies. Go-to
Accountability partners. Yeah. Because
accountability partners. I love it.
we know a big part of the coaching process is accountability, but it's
100%.
always funny when clients are like, when I ask them, how do you want to hold yourself accountable? They're like, well, why don't you text me? Or why don't you? I'm like, no, this is, because at some point I'm not going to be in your life in this
Exactly.
capacity. This is about you developing that skill of how you best hold
Yeah.
yourself accountable. And one of the principles I use is actually from Gretchen Rubin, her four tendencies.
Mm.
And there's like a free quiz you can take online, and it identifies people based on, it puts them in four groups based on how they deal with inner expectations and outer expectations.
Mm.
So how you deal with that is going to tell you a lot about the best way to hold yourself accountable. And
Nice.
people, like all of my clients do this. I have them take the quiz just for a level of knowledge. And just yesterday I was on a call with a client, and she's like, I have this thing where I realize that if someone gives me a deadline and they tell me to do it, I'm going to do it. But if it's something I personally want to get done, I'm having a really hard time. And she's like, wait a minute, didn't we do that for tendency? And I was like, yeah, you're an obliger. It's exactly what that is. So now that you have that knowledge and you've actually internalized it, how do you want to hold yourself accountable? And
Wow.
that's where the learning just like multiplies, and they can actually take it into action, and figure out the best way to accomplish their goals in a process that works for them.
Man, I love it. I love it. Well, Catherine, people need to find you. People need to find you. So how can people get in contact with you, reach out to you to get more of what you got?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram as khb.coaching. I'm also on LinkedIn, just my name, Katharina Bethea. And also KHB Coaching is on LinkedIn. And then, of course, my website, which is katharinabethea.com. And all the information's there. You can reach out to me, email. The email is simply hello@katharinabethea.com.
Nice, nice, nice. Well, I thank you so much for coming to hang out with me for a couple minutes
Yes.
today. Reach out to Katharina, reach out to her because she is a dynamo, and get her while she's seemingly affordable. Because she's gonna be on somebody's talk show really, really soon.
I want my own talk show. There you go.
She just said that somebody is her. She's gonna be on her own talk show. So y'all really better get a
My own
hold of
talk
her
show.
before you can't even book her. You got to be a guest on the show. How about that?
There we
Well,
go.
thank you so much. And
Thank you.
until next time, you can be a guest anytime you want to. So if you got some topics or some stuff you want to throw out there, just let me know and we could do this again.
Yes. Thank you for the opportunity. I was really flattered and humbled when you reached out. So I appreciate it.
That's easy enough. I'd be dumb if I didn't. Until next time, folks.
Yes.